When we talk about story, when we talk about interpretation, when we say, well, the artist meant this by this red thing in the corner, and that's why you did that, I think that's a waste of time for everybody to talk about things like that. Like, he meant this, or I mean this. This story is all about this. But when you just feel from a painting, it's something that's universal. It's something that's inescapable. I've been blown away with paintings that have that other sense, that otherness, that otherworldliness.
Welcome to the Creative Endeavor Podcast. This is the podcast bringing you inspiring stories from creative professionals from around the world. It's real conversations with real artists. And I'm Andrew Tischler. What a pleasure to have your company here in the studio once again in this episode with Josh Clare. Now, Josh is somebody that I've been following online for many, many years, admiring his work from afar. He paints beautifully, plein air, and some exquisite studio paintings. He's inspired by the beauty that surrounds him, and his home is Utah in the United States. He also creates some beautiful drawings. Now, this conversation really verges on the philosophical. What drives artists to create, and how do we maintain that authenticity and follow that silver thread of inspiration to its end? Why are we here? Why are we even painting anyway? This was a great opportunity to reflect with another artist about what's driving them and what makes them make their art. So I really hope you enjoy this conversation. Now, if you're not already doing so, make sure you follow Josh and his beautiful art on Instagram. He can be found at jclareart. That's at JCLAREART, and on his website at joshclare.com. I'll include those links in the description down below. Make sure, if you're not already doing so, you're following him there. Before we get into this awesome conversation with Josh, I just need to take a quick minute and tell you about this podcast sponsor, Rosemary and Co brushes. Having a great quality brush really does make a huge difference. If you're trying to produce your best work, there's nothing worse than a bunch of hairs falling out of your brush, ending up in your painting that you worked so hard on. But also, having a range of different fibers and different handle lengths and different thicknesses, different kinds of fibers to explore new techniques. When I first started using Rosemary and Co brushes in my work, it was an absolute paradigm shift. Rosemary and Co are the gold standard of art brushes out there. In my opinion, they make the finest brushes in the world. And there's a reason why so many professional artists are using their range of brushes. Right now, you can check out these brushes by following that link in the description accompanying this podcast and find out what those pros are using and what is helping them achieve amazing results at the easel. Visit rosemaryandco.com and trust me, your art will thank you for it. That's rosemaryandco.com, and a huge thank you to Rosemary and Co for making this podcast possible. And one more thing before we get into the audio version, just to remind you, there is a full video version, which is exclusively available on Tisch Academy. Please visit tisch.academy. That's TISCH. I will include that link in the description as well. All right, I'm going to get out of here. Let Josh Clare take over. Here he is. This is Josh Clare and the Creative Endeavor. Josh Clare, welcome to the Creative Endeavor Podcast. What a pleasure to finally meet you. I've been following you for many years now. This is going to be cool. I can't wait to get into what we're going to talk about here. So welcome.
Yeah, thank you. I'm excited to be here.
This is a place that I would love to start this conversation with you because it's been on my mind ever since I first saw it. It came up in a post on Instagram, and as I was looking at your page, I was just awestruck. And I'm like, who the heck has an easel that big that disappears into the floor? What the heck is going on there? Dude, that's got to be one of the best studios I've ever seen, one of the prettiest studios I've seen. But in terms of easels, I thought I had a great easel. It's pretty big, but it does not disappear into the floor. So tell me about the space that you're in and a little bit about your studio and tell me the story of the easel.
Yeah, so I'm down in the studio right now, and
There it
that's
is.
the easel that drops to the floor right there.
Wow.
Um, so it starts with our move from Arizona to Utah. I grew up in Utah, and we moved to Arizona for a time, and it was an artist move because it was really close to 2008. There was a big crash in the economy here in the United States.
Yeah.
Houses were like half price in Arizona. That's where my parents grew up, and where all my grandma and grandpa, both sides lived there, cousins, uncles, and aunts, and they said, Josh, you've got to check out buying a house down here. It's crazy. So we got just an amazing deal on a house down there, and it allowed me to go from teaching teaching part-time at my alma mater at BYU Idaho and a gallery career, kind of a mix, to like jump into the gallery career full time. So I was down there for a couple of years. We made full-time artwork. This was in 2010, 10 to 13.
Mhm.
And in 13, we moved back to Utah. We found we live in an amazing place in northern Utah. We've got land, and we bought this 100-year-old home, this old brick home. This is a super long version. I'm going to speed this up, Andrew,
No,
so I
no,
can
no.
go.
Give me the long version, please.
This
Give
is
me the long
brutal.
version. I love
So
it.
we moved into this old Victorian 100-year-old brick home. It had this addition on the back that became my studio, but it
Mhm.
was like maybe mm, maybe 200 square feet, like 150 square feet.
Mhm.
Um, and I put this skylight in it that faced north a little bit and
Wow.
had just some beautiful years of painting in it. Loved it. It's a beautiful studio, but always there's this sense of like, man, it'd be nice to have a bigger studio. It'd be nice to build something. We've got a lot that's big enough that the thought was to knock down this chicken coop, this shed that we had, and build it there. So that's what we ended up doing. And I think part of like the reaction against just that little space for so long was, let's just make this big. Let's make it as big as I'm going to need, last for a lifetime. Let's just do this right from the start. Um, so I think we went bigger than I would have if I hadn't had those years of painting in such a small space. I wanted, um, anyway. It feels excessive. I feel bad about it almost. Like, why, like it's bigger than the house, honestly. It really is. It's
This
bigger
is
than our
too much.
house.
Well, you got your
Yeah.
priorities right, man. It sounds like it.
Um, but no, it's been an enormous blessing. Um and my wife's okay that it's bigger than the house, and it has, like the kids. I've got this climbing rope in the studio right here. And it goes up. There's a library upstairs.
Nice.
And the kids just swing on that rope all day, and uh, they love it in here. So it's just an extension of the house, really, and it's been a huge blessing. The hole in the floor
Mm.
is something that I heard about in China.
Okay.
There was I took a trip with some Chinese artist friends. We had a beautiful time back there, And I just heard about a Chinese artist that had this concept of like a huge concrete studio, hole in the floor to drop big paintings through so you didn't have to climb scaffolding.
Mm.
And so it was just in the back of my mind as a beautiful idea. So when I designed the plans for the studio, I included, it's super easy, honestly, um, to leave a hole. You just run the joist the right way and leave a hole in the floor. So it wasn't a difficult thing to do. Um, and then my father-in-law helped me design um, like the lift for the easel, and we built it out of that aluminum. I don't even know what you call it. It's that four-way aluminum stuff that.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
It's
Anyway,
like a
he's
like a C or an H channel kind of thing.
yeah.
Yeah.
So anyway, he's Mark Roberts is his name. He built this easel here for me.
Okay. And
Um,
for the
and
people just
nobody-
listening to the audio version, it's a giant wooden easel that you're pointing to now with that clasping mechanism on there. That looks solid as
yeah. And
phenomenal.
so he built me this. He built these beautiful oak easels, and he helped me design the wall easel as well, and just figured out all the logistics for me. He's really good, mechanically minded, brilliant man. So he helped me on that.
Okay, a quick question. How many tubes of paint or paint brushes are down in the bottom of that channel?
Um, to, so it's actually there's a basement. That's I have
Okay.
like a gallery space downstairs, and then I have a shop downstairs. So it
Okay.
drops into the shop. That is
Okay,
the thing.
cool. Because I
So
was picturing if it's just going into a hole in the ground and you drop your favorite detail, you're like, oh dang it, I dropped my brush. There it is. It's
I know.
forever sealed. It's in its tomb now.
No, actually, so since I've done it,
Mhm.
the idea spreads, right? And a bunch of other artists have done it, and a couple artists that I know do have that kind of channel of death with because my because so if someone else builds one, right? There's like 4 or 5 or 6 artists here in Utah that have one now built
Yeah.
by Mark. Um,
Wow.
but if someone builds one, Mark goes and installs it, so he'll tell me, yeah, I just installed so and so's today, and they had this like concrete box that was anyway. So mine is not, it doesn't have a pit of death or whatever. It's just downstairs. I just go get it.
Excellent. Excellent. Well, you sound, yeah, it sounds from the very layout of your home and studio that your priorities are definitely in the right place. Climbing rope, that's a new one for me, so that's quite interesting. But how big is this space that we're talking? A couple more questions about the studio itself because I'm just fascinated. It is beautiful. It's a beautiful space. But how many feet by how many feet?
So this room that I'm in is
Mhm.
like 20 feet by 30 feet.
Wow.
And it has 10 feet extensions on the side. Like there's a closet.
Mhm.
So that wall to this wall is 20 feet, but then there's 10 foot. There's like a bathroom and the stairs on one side that's that additional 10 feet. And
Mhm.
there's closets on this side that they're pushed out.
Amazing. The lighting looks incredible. That beautiful, soft, natural light. So
It's
you purpose
beautiful.
built this lighting into it. Presumably, you're under a skylight right now, right?
Yeah, so in that initial studio that I had, it wasn't on purpose. It was just like I want more north light in
Mhm.
here. It was just a traditional slanted roof or whatever,
Mhm.
and this space was north facing.
Mhm.
So I put a little 2 foot by 4 foot skylight in that, and I just loved painting under it. So on this one, I ended up putting these are
Oh
they're
wow,
each
man.
they're like 4 foot by 4 foot skylights.
Oh my
So it's like
goodness.
I don't even know, 8 foot by 12 foot or whatever
Yeah.
chunk in the sky.
Oh
And you're getting it
wow.
that's like overcast today and it's crazy beautiful light right now. So
That's oh, phenomenal. You know, I remember seeing Nikolai Fetchin's studio in Taos. And that
that's what
has
it is. Yeah,
right? Okay, and
totally
walking into that room, I was just like, whoa.
right.
I was
Oh,
visiting with my father at the time. I turned to him and I said, "This is it. This is an art goal for me right here." And
well,
my goodness, man. So
and the way
you've
they
actually,
the way his like climbs up the wall and pushes, it's just huge, huh? Just this huge.
Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah. So yeah, he's got that angled, so that glass that goes from about 4 feet off the ground goes up to that what do you call it, like a ridge line or something, where the gable roof starts, and then half of that gable roof is just all glass. It's just stunning. But
Amazing.
this is reminds me, this is the modern version of the Fetchin studio. It looks like it's just stunning, man. Absolutely stunning. So do you have any artificial light at all that you paint under?
Yeah. So on the keep moving this thing. On the roof, those are LED panels, those big flat guys up there.
Okay.
And then there's another LED panel. I can't even see. It's
Oh,
smaller, but it's like one of those warehouse LED 5000K panels um,
okay.
that I can hit to supplement, or if I'm painting at night.
Excellent.
Some honestly, in the like, this is the best kind of day where the light's the brightest. This overcast.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, but some things, I mean, I figured out a bunch of things. This angle isn't steep enough to avoid some light leakage, like the sun will poke through in the summer months.
Hmm.
So I had to install like solar blinds so that I can get them down. Anyway, I have to adjust it. Obviously, natural light, you're always having to like push and pull to get it just right, and it changes every day. But it's lovely, and the way that it feels in here, honestly, is one of my favorite things with natural light. There's something about
Hmm.
it. It feels like being outside, and it's really nice.
Even though we're talking on Zoom right now and I'm looking at you in your studio, I can really feel that through the screen. So I want the people listening to this, if you're not watching the video version, you can find that on Tish Academy. But just feeling that come through here, the screen is kind of cool. And there's a little thing that I've been playing with recently, and a few of my students have kind of they've pointed me in the right direction, because a few of them know a lot more about CRI than I knew. Haven't been working with LEDs for years now. Started making my eyes go a little bit funny. How do you find those panels? Because I'm also under the 5,000 Kelvin panels, and also I've got these bicolor panels that you could change the temperature one way or another, so you could get that 5,000. But I was working under such a low CRI. Do you pay attention to the CRI number at all? Color
I
rendering index for people that are listening.
Yeah, on these ones, I don't even remember. I don't remember what the CRI was on them, but they don't bother me at all. It's totally fine to paint under. It's more,
Cool.
it's more consistent than the natural light too. So it's convenient sometimes. Just flip them on and have that. I'll just paint under both. Just have the
Nice.
LED panels supplemented.
So this is obviously the result of many years of being a successful artist. In this conversation with you, I'd love to delve into the business side of things, as much detail as you want to give, or as little, but also hear a bit more about your story coming up. So I would love to know, where did this journey start for you? How did this thing get going? Take us back as far as you like.
Yeah. Um, I I think there's two things that I remember really from my childhood that are, well, man, I haven't thought about that either. So when I was in elementary school, I always loved to draw. And I always loved drawings. I loved looking at drawings. And there was this book when I was a kid, and we're close to the same age, so I'm curious if you'll remember this, but it was like there'd just be this shape of a face, and then a whole book full of features like eyes and noses and mouths, just kind of caricatured, cartoony faces. And you'd like
Yeah,
take your face and trace some features onto it and make a head. Do
I
you remember
think
that?
so. Yeah, oh gosh, that's going back decades, but yeah, I
Yeah.
think I do. Yeah, right.
So it's like I had a book like that when I was a kid, and I'd play around with those drawings. It was super fun for me to be creative that way. I remember like wanting to draw, being able to draw a horse. I saw this editorial cartoon in the newspaper with this horse that I just thought I just liked. I liked the shapes, I liked the lines, I liked it. Something about it was really compelling. And so I went back home and I traced the horse exactly, and then I practiced like over and over doing this horse until I could draw that horse like that horse. And kind of began to build confidence in myself that, hey, I can draw, and if I work hard, I can do this thing. And became that kid at school that like, oh, Josh can draw, right? And it just continues to build this sense of, I can draw. I'm an artist. I'm able to do this thing. And uh, the Disney movies, the classic Glenn Keane Disney movies, were really influential for me, and not in like in a subliminal way. Beauty and the Beast, Aladdin, Lion King, Little Mermaid, Tarzan, like those really, really well drawn traditional 2D animated movies um, were so. I loved the good drawing, and I thought, man, if I could draw like that, that'd be it. I just want to be able to draw like that. Um, And then Calvin and Hobbes, actually, I discovered Calvin and Hobbes around the same time. And those drawings, man, and
Bill Watterson, man, was what a genius, right?
oh, I love that guy so much. I want so bad. Like one of my huge life goals is to meet him. Like he's plein air painting, apparently, has been for 10 years. And I'm like, Bill,
Are,
take my workshop. Please come take my workshop.
are you kidding me? He's out there playing air painting.
That's yeah, as far as as far as
Yeah,
I've been able to stalk and figure it out, he's just doing, art, whatever. He's
yeah,
making paintings sometimes.
yeah.
In
That's
fact,
interesting. Oh,
he
sorry, go
said
on.
something super powerful in an interview
Hmm.
about that, is that and we could talk about this later. There's
Hmm.
so much to talk about, but um he like for Calvin and Hobbes, he had a limited format. He had a limited he could use pen and ink. It had to be this big, and it had to be like every single day. Sunday it got this big, and he had a little bit more creative freedom, but the constraints were still really defined,
Hmm.
really, really set.
Hmm.
And that enhanced his creativity in an enormous way. Like that was that's why he was able to create something so magnificent, is the restraint.
Wow.
And so he
Yeah.
talked about like becoming a fine artist and
Hmm.
I could paint 6 inches by 6 inches and 60 feet by 60 feet in acrylic or oil. I could do it in pencil. I could do mixed medium. Like the sheer freedom is handicapping. It's horrible. I don't know what to do. I'm totally at a loss of what to do, is what he said. Like, and so his creativity plummeted to where like this genius of a man who made this beautiful thing for us, or I would even say someone through who God was able to send a beautiful thing into the world, like this vessel, has
Wow.
been maybe less of a vessel because he hasn't had any constraint. And it's what we kick against as artists. It's like, I don't want any, I need my freedom. I need my freedom as an artist. But I've thought a ton about that the past couple of years, is giving myself um, self-imposed restrictions, like
Mm.
time, even like a deadline or a size restraint or a medium restraint or a subject restraint, something to help me be productive and creative, because total freedom um, can be really bad, really crippling.
That's so interesting. I totally see it now. And from what you're saying about that Bill Watterson quote, the one thing though, you know, that made Bill Watterson a genius in my mind, it wasn't just the art, but it was his understanding and ability to tap into childhood and capture the essence of this young boy who was very much a loner, very mischievous, so, and a loner to the extent that he had this imaginary friend, Hobbs, right? And was able to tap into something that so many of us weird art kids could identify with. And I like Calvin for me became a friend in a way. I still have my stack of Calvin and Hobbes books. Scientific Progress goes boink. Yukon Ho, the 10th anniversary collection, which is now decades old. the Lazy Sunday book, all these different, the authoritative Calvin, like I've got these compilation books. And Rachel, my wife, pulled them out the other day. We were reorganizing the bookshelf. She's like, "What are we going to do with these? Do you want to give these to Goodwill?" I'm like, "No, these are my Calvin and Hobbes books. Are you kidding me?" When my son is old enough, I want him to start reading Calvin and Hobbes. But it was Watterson's ability to really get into that mind of this 6-year-old boy and the adventures and how he would make this commentary on culture, society, but do it in a crippling, funny way. Like some of them, you're reading these and they're just hilarious, but he just hits the friggin' nail on the head. So they're incredibly deep, some of them, but then he's got the humor and he's got the art, and it's like it's this flash. And I like what you said about, maybe it is a gift from God. I tend to think that way, but it's so cool that he's been an influence for you too. That's awesome.
Yeah, you're so right. It was because a good drawing's a good drawing. There's a lot of guys that can draw well, right? But
Yeah.
and this is a good lesson for fine artists, like a huge lesson for me as an
Mm.
artist. That like an aesthetically pleasing thing is not the end goal. Like that's not good enough, right? Like a
Mm.
ton of guys can make a good drawing. Calvin and Hobbes was transcendent because it had all that. Like aesthetically, it was delightful. I love still looking at it. I love his line. I love the way he grows as an artist over the course of the strip, right?
Oh yeah.
I love when he'll attack. Like he would do those for a compilation for a book. He would do that first 10 pages of like a story that was special with watercolor and big elaborate drawings. Do you remember some of those in the beginning of
Yeah.
those books?
Yeah.
So he had all of that, like the beauty, the actual craft, but the content was and it's still amazing to me that as like an 8-year-old or a 10-year-old, I could laugh at the jokes and I could relate to it. And if I'd sit on like the floor on a Sunday afternoon with the sun pouring through a window and just go through my Calvin Hobbes books. Um, and then as I got older, they were still engaging and they were deeper than I'd ever thought before. And I came to know, I feel like I know Bill Watterson. I feel like fans are the same way. We feel like we know Bill Watterson. We know how he thinks, we know how he feels. You get this sense of him through the work. Um, so anyway, if our paintings don't have that as well, if they don't have that sense of us, if there's not a deeper content that's relatable that people can grasp and hold on to, then it doesn't matter how pretty it is, how beautiful on the surface it is. It won't go where art with a capital A was meant to go. It won't be art with a capital A.
Let's drill into that. That's really, really interesting. So I think, what you're talking about here is something that I've been wrestling with is, what is truly authentic for you as an artist. So how does one do it? Because personally, I get caught up in optics and visual tricks. I want to create a slick painting. I want to create a beautiful drawing. I want a full range of tones and have forms perfectly rendered. But if I'm honest, sometimes I will look at my work and I'll be like, well, there's nothing in there beyond that. So I'm still chasing that silver thread of finding that meaning for me and that thing I really want to dive into and explore through this vehicle of art. But sometimes I get caught up in the vehicle itself. So how do you find that as an artist? And how do you know when you're on it and when you're off it? How do you get back on it? Like, have you wrestled with this personally?
Oh man. Yeah. I mean, for me, it is the wrestle of being an artist. It is the thing that I battle every single day because I'm the same way. I'm a surface junkie. I love oil paint. I love it. I love any kind of paint. I love a thing, like a made thing. That's why I love a drawing. I love charcoal on paper. I love to just get up this close to a fashion drawing or an NCYF painting and just see paint. I love it like crazy. And um I want that in my work. I want to be able to create that kind of um just surface quality, that kind of surface beauty. So it's been part of my journey, I guess, part of this beautiful thing called art that you're constantly learning. You're just a learner always. But part of this journey has been me realizing that that's it's really the metaphor is the body and the soul, right? So the thing that makes us live, the thing that makes us us, is inside this thing called the body. And you've met people with like beautiful bodies, beautiful bodies who have kind of ugly souls, and it makes them a non-desirable human. You know what I mean? You don't want to be with someone like that. And you've met people with kind of um, what initially can even be like a repulsive body or a scary body with a beautiful soul.
Mm,
And um, those kind of people
magnetic.
are God incarnate almost. They
Yeah.
have a piece of Him in them. They're sunshine and light, and they're everything. And you want to spend all of your time with people like that, right?
Hmm.
So God has just been teaching me through my career over and over again. He has to kind of hammer it into me all the time that Josh, like, it's okay to strive for a beautiful body and art, but if the thing has no spirit, then it won't breathe. It won't be anything. It'll be less than worthless. It'll just be a sham. You know what I mean?
Oh,
Um, it's almost like the olive tree that Christ cursed, right? Because it said, "Look, I have fruit," and he went up and it didn't have fruit. Like when your painting doesn't have heart or a soul like that, it's hypocritical. Like it's saying I'm something that's going to be beautiful, and then you get up to it and you realize that it's soulless, that's not even alive, you know?
I think about that scripture a lot, by the way. Every tree that bears not good fruit is hewn down and cast into the fire. And that makes me shudder a little bit.
I,
I'm like, you know, well, Josh, that's fascinating. I've never thought about it in that way, but you're so right. You're so right. The body and the soul, that's a beautiful metaphor for this thing. I've never heard it put in those words before. So,
have you, I want to ask you, Andrew,
sure, sure.
have you seen a painting that breathes like that? Like
Oh
it may
yeah.
not be the finest example of, craftsmanship, maybe the drawing or the colors off a little bit, but have you like tell me about times when you've encountered a painting that is full of light.
Cool. Well, I'll keep this brief because people on the listening to the podcast, if they've been listening for a while, I've spoken about this in several episodes. But there was a pivotal moment that really changed my life and my career. So I was already a professional artist for about 3 or 4 years at this point, and I saw this exhibition way back in the beginning. So it was 2005, and I'd made that transition coming out of university into full-time art. And so I'm go to this exhibition called St. Petersburg 1900, which is showing at the Art Gallery of Western Australia, where I was living at the time in Perth in Western Australia. We got
Right.
no art or anything really much happening, but a great collection of Australian artists. Seems
Yeah.
around 19th century, there was something in the water worldwide, and you had these amazing, Victorians, Heidelberg School. You had some of those Hudson River painters that were doing amazing stuff, and the Russians, my goodness, the Russians. And so there was this
And
painting. I forget the title. I think it was either October or December, but it was from memory. I should pull this up. I should really know the title of the painting.
I want to see it. Yeah, totally.
But it
After
was it was by Ivan Ivanovich Shishkin, and it was a monster. And I'm there looking at this painting, and it's just snow-caked logs that are falling in the foreground, these trees with ice and snow kind of clinging to the bark, and this little bit of distance that's opened up. There's a branch that comes somewhere towards the upper middle of the composition. There's like an owl or some sort of hawk perched on that branch, but you just looked at it, and the light was gently filtering through the branches, illuminating. The snow was glistening as it's clinging to these logs, and I was looking at this painting and I started to feel cold. And I realized I'm not looking at a painting here, I'm having an experience. And so I looked at that and immediately I just said to myself, I want to do this for the rest of my life. But the
wow.
thing was, is it wasn't reveling in the optics of it. it's what he was able to do through that vehicle and have this experience that allowed me to transcend the present moment and step into his world, this
Yeah.
thing. But
Mhm.
that kind of begs the question, where then is the story? Where is the narrative? Is it something that I brought to it? So I'm still unsure because I think that, I had a young lady looking at a painting of mine that was maybe 15 years ago. She was looking at a painting of mine at an exhibition, and she was staring at this thing, and she unpacked this elaborate story from a painting of a desert gorge with this Clearwater Creek moving through the base of it. And she was talking about her relationship and the difference between the opaque water and the transparent water and what that meant to her and how it reflected on her childhood and all this. I'm like, okay, I'm all for it. You do you. That's an amazing
Oh,
interpretation. I wasn't thinking that at all. I was just like, how cool is this light on this water? But
right,
it
right.
it kind of it begs the question for me is like, where does that meaning come from? Is this something that we're injecting into it? And so again, I go back to that wrestle personally. But to answer
Yeah.
your question, that was probably the pivotal moment for me. It's since then I've had similar experiences looking at The Potato Gatherers by Jules Bastien Lepage. It's spending
Mhm.
hours in front of the painting at the National Gallery of Victoria in Melbourne, just going, what
Yeah.
the heck is this even? Jules
Mhm.
Bastien Lepage made a huge impact on me. And then looking at the work of Fetchin, but I think it was also a transcendent experience for me was just being in Fetchin's space. Even there wasn't a whole lot of art at the time that I was looking at.
Right,
I think they might
right.
have even had another artist exhibiting in the studio at the time. But
Yeah.
but being in that space was just extraordinary. So I've been blessed to have
Mhm.
had a few of these moments in my life that have shaped me as an artist for sure.
Yeah. No, that's such a beautiful experience. Thank you. That I love so much about that story, the Shishkin story. But I'd push back a little bit on it. You said like, was it you that brought that story to
Yeah,
it?
yeah, yeah, yeah.
Um, but I don't think like in that instance, in that experience, it feels to me like you didn't bring, it wasn't the same. You weren't like, how old were you when you saw that?
Oh gosh, I must have been 22,
When you,
24. In addition to a fuzzy memory, I'm terrible at math. So, but somewhere around there, early
yeah.
20s anyway. Let's say that. Yeah,
I mean, you weren't like the girl that saw your painting. You weren't saying, the artist meant this when he put that log facing towards me. He meant that he was telling a story about when this happened to him, or like you just felt something. You felt
that's right.
cold.
Yeah,
Do you know what I mean? You felt something. So how does that get into a painting? Like, did the
yeah,
artist put it there? Did you just bring that feeling to it? I really think that that's something that you can't manufacture. It's something that the artist has to put in, and it's that the viewer has to take out. When we talk about
interesting.
story, when we talk about interpretation, when we say, well, the artist meant this by this red thing in the corner, and that's why you did that, I think that's a waste of time for everybody to talk about things like that. Like he meant this, or I mean this, or this story is all about this. But when you just feel from a painting, when you just, it's something that's universal. It's something that's inescapable. I've been blown away in my experience with paintings that have that other sense, that that otherness, that otherworldliness, that holy cow, I feel coldness about it. That it's not like you don't have to know anything about art, or you can know everything about art. You could have never seen a painting and you could have done nothing your whole life but look at paintings. But if that magic happens, if it's in the painting like that, like I really believe it must have been in that Shishkin painting.
Oh
Like
yeah,
he must have felt it when he painted it. He must have been in a place somehow. And what are the divine requirements that allow you to make a painting like that? That's what I'm still searching for. But somehow he got to the place where it got stuck in that oil paint, and not everybody has to receive it when it's there. There's tons of people that can listen to a beautiful sonata and go, that's boring. I'd rather listen to my rock or whatever. So there's people that can reject it. Um, but I believe it's undeniably there. And everybody who comes to a painting like that, where it's there, um, will feel it. Do you know what I mean? And you
Hmm.
were in a place where you sat with that painting long enough, or you were just open enough. You were there where you were ready to receive it, and where you had this connection between an artist where it's not that a story is communicated, it's a feeling that's communicated. Like how he felt about what he painted. It's
Hmm.
like you get to feel it somehow as you stand in front of it. It's crazy. It's miraculous, actually.
It really is. And it's doing something in a way that, things like photo, not to crap on photographers, but I don't think there would be another way that he could have conveyed that. I can't think of another vehicle. This is why I paint. I'm sure there are ways of communicating certain things with music, as you say, and other
Yeah,
mediums. But this is why I keep coming back to oil paint specifically. I think it's just happens to be one of the best vehicles for delivering that, you know?
yeah. For this experience, it is a special vehicle for that.
Hmm.
And thinking of music, it would have to be. I know you've probably been in a live performance where
Yeah.
the singer really feels it and something special happens. And you can listen to the recording afterwards, or you can listen to their CD that they cut or whatever. And it's not the same as when you sat there in front of them and had this experience, right?
Right on.
Uh, but on Broadway or with music and stuff, it's the thing that happens and it's done. In painting, the miraculous thing is if the artist gets to that spot and makes the painting that has this soul that we're talking about, that breathes like we're talking about, then it's stuck there. And you get to see a Shishkin painting 100 years later that's traveled across the world, is hanging in Melbourne, Australia, or whatever, and it's still stuck into the paint. Like it's the most miraculous. It's bonkers. It's why I paint as well.
Well, I really hope you're enjoying this episode of The Creative Endeavor so far. Please excuse the brief interruption. I just need to take a minute and tell you about this podcast sponsor, Rosemary and Co brushes. Have you ever felt like your brushes were holding you back? Look, I know I did until I switched to Rosemary and Co brushes. These brushes are seriously a game changer. They've been making brushes for over 40 years, specializing in oils, acrylics, and watercolors. But let me tell you, they are simply the best there is out there. Now, personally, I've noticed a huge difference in my work since I started using them. Their quality is unmatched, and my techniques is improved because these brushes give me the control and precision I need. And honestly, I'm not going to use any other brush. So if you're ready to step up your game, visit rosemaryandco.com. They've got everything you need to take your art to the next level. That is, in the brush department anyway. That's rosemaryandco.com, and trust me, your art will thank you for it. Now, thank you so much for allowing this brief interruption. Let's get right back into our conversation with Josh Clare. So you're painting some knockout stuff, Josh. Incredible work. I geek out about your surface quality, your brush strokes, your use of color, composition, edge. I'm obsessed with edges. Your edges are so varied. It's so painterly and beautiful. It it's a real study just looking at your work, just going, wow, how the heck did he do that? What's he doing? Why did he make that decision? Totally works. So,
Yeah,
okay, let me ask you this. I, I'd love to dive into a little bit more about how you found your feet professionally.
sure.
At what point did you realize, oh heck, I can make this work as a full-time artist?
Right. Um, so from a kid who loved drawing, went to college, enrolled in the art program because my career test told me to actually. I I'm I'm a member of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, and I served a mission for our church. I served in Japan for 2 years when I was like 20 or 19 to 21. So I graduated from high school young. I had like a semester at college, and then I served for 2 years as a full-time missionary. So that semester before my full-time mission felt like I mean, it didn't matter. I was just serving a mission. I was like, I haven't even considered what I'm going to do for a career.
Hmm.
I know I want to go to college. So here goes. I guess I'll enroll in art. Um, Truly, because the career test was like, you're really creative. And I'd had really poor art instruction in high school. Um, but I enrolled in art and it solidified everything that had been there my whole life, really, with all the drawing and all the love of drawings. Um, that I just needed. I needed creativity in my life. I truly uh, crave it. Like I just need it. I don't know. So
Hmm.
it filled the hole that was there. I just um, came back from a mission to think seriously about, okay, now, I want to get married, have a family. I want to provide for my kids. How can I do this with something, creatively? How can I do this somehow with art? Um, so initially, actually, in college, I dove first into graphic design because I thought, I could get a job doing this. So I did graphic design for a couple semesters. I got an internship in graphic design, and I had a guy who I thought had really, really poor taste and no artistic skills, sweet skills, zero artistic skills. I had him telling me, no, change that to red or change that to blue or try this. And it was so jarring with my artistic sensibilities that I knew immediately, no, I mean, I could do graphic design maybe, but it'd be hard on my soul. I've got to be able to make more decisions than this. Um, so I jumped into illustration thinking, okay, still viable, provide for my family thing. Found kind of the same thing there. Like my whole life, I'm like 22 or 23, and I haven't been to a museum or a gallery, an art gallery my whole life. So I'm up in BYU, Idaho, Rexburg, Idaho. It's an hour from Jackson. I take an oil painting one class. We go to the galleries in Jackson. I see beautiful, inspiring oil paintings. Mian Situ, Bill Anton, ZS Liang. They just had some really beautiful figurative stuff going on. And I looked at I loved these things. I loved these paintings. And I looked at the price tag and I thought, holy cow, totally ignorantly, I thought, $30,000? This is crazy. I could do this for a living, no problem. This is what I'll do, right? So I just totally make this decision of, well, and it was part of that. That's my first exposure to this thing called a painting. I was like, people seriously have paintings hanging on their walls? Holy cow. People seriously buy these things? No way. And I could make all the choices, like just make a painting and stick it up there and see if they buy it. This is crazy. So it opened this new possibility for me as a 23-year-old or whatever. Um, I just taken my first oil painting class, and and I just got married. It was like months after I got married. And so I wasn't casually looking for what I was going to do for the rest of my life anymore. I was feeling like some serious, I got to choose. I've got to figure this out, right? So I was super prayerful about, okay, God, I need to know what you want me to do with this thing that you gave me, like this creative things, pardon me. If I can use this, please let me. What do you want me to do though with this? And I had just a really, really clear, um, this amazing sense of confidence like I've never had before, honestly, otherworldly, that wasn't mine, that God just said, do this. You be a painter and it's going to work out beautifully.
Hmm.
And I was like, I was stoked because that's what I wanted. And I knew it was going to work out. So at this point, I'd done like a total of 6 paintings in my life. I'd been in an oil painting one class is all. And I'm like, I'm halfway through college and I went, I am going to be a painter. I will be a.
Awesome.
Um, Luckily, I had Scott Christensen up there. He lived half an hour from BYU, Idaho.
Oh, cool.
And I had heard through the grapevine that Scott said it took about 2,000 paintings from life to figure out how to paint, which is really close to the Malcolm Gladwell 10,000 hour rule. Like he'd
Yeah.
said, after about 2,000 paintings from life, I was starting to figure out stuff. So I
Okay.
said, God wants me an artist. I'm going to be a painter. I need to work my tail off. I know that I'm not. I can't just hang my paintings are total crap right now. But if I'm going to get good, I got to go outside and paint, and I got to paint my tail off and just pray for grace. So I painted hard, and I painted from life, and in those I kind of stretched my college out as far as I could. So I gave myself another 2 years of intense painting and drawing from life. And by the time I graduated, I got into Astoria and Jackson Hole, Astoria Fine Art. That's kind of a story all by itself too. Like I took my BFA show, a bunch of paintings, took them over to Jackson, and I was like the classic, walking in the gallery, bling, bling, bling. Hey, my name's Josh. I'm an artist. Do you want to look at my paintings, kind of thing? And Greg Fulton he's the owner of Astoria, and he's like, all the stars aligned. It was April, nothing's happening in Jackson. Zero is happening in Jackson. Um, it was early in the morning. There wasn't a soul in miles, right? Like those Jackson streets that are always totally crowded. There's just nobody there. So he really had nothing else to do. So he's like, yeah, sure, yeah, bring in your paintings, stick them on the floor. And I look young. I've always looked young. So as a 23 or 4-year-old or whatever, I looked really young. So I'm sure he's thinking, oh my word, what are we going to get? And the paintings surprised him. They weren't amazing, but they were good. And I think much better than he had expected. And so he said, yeah, we'll give it a shot. And a couple of months later, we broke the ice, sold my first paintings. I remember actually that summer after graduation, this is like 2007. That summer, there was a collector from Bozeman who bought all of my paintings in Astoria, and he took them back up to Bozeman to resell them because he was just stoked about the work. But Greg's like, we sold everything. We need more paintings, Josh. And that call was one of the happiest. I think we didn't have insurance at that point, and I remember just like kneeling down in the sunshine and in the grass and saying, Heavenly Father, thanks for giving me insurance so that I can take care of my wife, So
Wow.
it's been like that miracle after miracle where we've just been taken care of. Things have just worked out when they need to work out. And it continues, I mean, like the business of art, especially for a non-business minded guy like me, which that's not because I couldn't figure out how to be a business minded man. It's just that
Right.
when I focus on that, it sucks the soul out of my paintings. So if I want that Shishkin thing to happen in my work, I have to not think about the business of art, or else it kills me. So, and this is not everybody. This is just me. Like I have a hard time painting for the right reasons if I'm too worried about the logistics of like where the painting's going to go, how much it's going to sell for, if people are going to love me, if people will think I'm the bomb after I did the thing. If I'm in that sort of headspace, that business headspace, it wrecks me, and I feel like it wrecks my work. So I've had to be, I don't even know what you call it, sort of a not happy-go-lucky, but sort of like not brainless either. But I've had to just give that to him. Just go, Heavenly Father, you've taken care of me so far. You know what we need. You know we need stuff. You said that you can clothe the lilies of the field better than we could possibly clothe ourselves. Um, and you've done it for me forever. So I'm just going to keep trying to, um, I'm going to keep trying to give this to you. And as I do, um, I know you'll take care of me. I don't even have to ask him. I just know that if I do it that way, that he'll just take care of me. So he has. So that's the I mean, sort of the story.
I absolutely love that. I love that. Um, Matthew 6, 28. And why take ye thought for raiment? Consider the lilies of the field, how they grow. They toil not, neither do they spin. And yet I say unto you that even Solomon in all of his glory was not arrayed like one of these. I love that. It's
Isn't that tasty? It's so tasty. He just doesn't want us to think about it or worry about it. He
don't
like
worry, man. Don't worry.
all the stuff is his. All the stuff.
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
and we're destined to be joint heirs with him, like to have all the stuff. And we worry so much while we're here on earth about like grasping a little more, like a little bigger house and a little more land and a nicer car. And we like try to, and we take so much, we place so much stock in our own worth, and we compare ourselves to other people, and we think like, I just need more and then I'll be happier. I just need more. And then we die, Andrew, and we become dust. And our stuff is our stuff. You know what I mean? Like, what the flip are we doing?
I don't
So
know, man. I want a 30-foot studio with an easel that disappears into the ground. I don't know what you're talking about. Got to have goals, right? Come on.
I know.
Must
And
be nice.
actually, that breaks my heart too. Like when people see this and they go, oh man, if only I could have that, then I'd be happy. I'm like, well, I don't know why God gave me this. I don't feel worthy of it. I don't feel like I deserve it
Mm.
for sure. But I do feel every time I come out here, like I better not be dinking around. I better not be selfish. I better not paint just to make Josh awesome. I better give this to him, you know?
Right on. Okay. Yeah.
So a real sense of responsibility that like if he's going to let us do this like he has, then what am I doing with it? Am I just trying to build my own kingdom? Am I just trying to get more stuff? Do I want people to think I'm awesome? When people see a Josh Clare painting, are they going, man, that guy can paint? Or are they experiencing something like you did with Ivan Shishkin? Do they
Mm.
feel cold? Do you know what I mean? Where it goes all the way past the artist, all the way through to like to that transcendent experience, that place of wonder and awe, you know.
Yeah.
I don't know. It's a battle every day, though, Andrew. It's not like I've got it figured out because every day I come back out here and there's the selfishness and the worry about like what are people going to think, and oh shoot, how am I going to provide for my family? I have 5 kids. Oldest is 16 years old. You know, he's driving now. Like, um, anyway, all the cares and the concerns of the world, the fear, all of that stuff creeps in every single day. The selfishness, the desire for more. And so it's just this constant push to push it out, um, and to lose myself, to paint
Mhm.
selflessly, to be more like Jesus. And that's going to take a lifetime. I don't anticipate like being like him when I'm done here on earth, but I hope to be a little closer.
I love that. I was just talking to one of my guys um, about that very thing yesterday. And, we're called as people of faith, we're called to be Christ-like and be perfect because your Father in heaven's perfect, right? I try not to
Yeah.
get too religious on the podcast, so if you're listening to this and you're not quite there, that's okay. But um, I I I hear something like that, and I kind of recognize first it's impossible. We can't do it, but that's the point, is that we're supposed to try.
Yeah.
And thank God that he gave us that example. It allows me as an artist, as a husband, as a father, to focus on those things that I should be focused on, doing the things that I should be doing, and
Yeah.
continuing to stay there and walk this narrow path. And that's when I feel like I'm on. The minute I start creeping in, the minute ego starts creeping in, the minute it starts becoming too much about me and what I can get, and instead of focusing on how can I serve here, how can I give, how can I share,
Right.
how can I bring glory to him, then that's when the gig's up and I've lost it. And
Yeah.
so, and I get there, like, and it sounds like we might be at a similar place from time to time, but I get there so
Yeah.
often. I get that little reminders going, hang on a second, you've created another idol, just step it back a little bit. But
Right.
it's interesting that I've had so many artists on, and this was not intentional, but so many artists on that, you know, are have a faith,
Mm.
and it's so interesting to hear how that impacts their work and how it becomes part of this greater mission for them.
Yeah.
I love that. I love that because I think, you know, personally, if it was just about me, I would get caught in that churn, and it'd probably get boring, you know?
Yeah. I mean, and horrible. I can't even imagine if it was just me and the idol of painting, the love of painting,
Mhm.
and and thinking, well, maybe if I'm able to sell these suckers for more money, maybe if I'm more famous, maybe I mean I need to be in museum collections. I need to. Like what's gonna happen when I die if I'm not in the museums? Just like the horrible weight of doing it for yourself. It would be miserable. It'd make a beautiful thing miserable, actually. So my heart aches for artists who are in that place where they don't have something bigger to give it to.
Mhm.
And whether it's Jesus Christ or the God that I believe in or some other faith, all faith is beautiful, but just to have something or to just give it selflessly to like providing for your kids maybe or helping or just helping someone be happy or a little bit more, like if it was like a comic strip like Calvin and Hobbes and you're just trying to bring a little bit of a smile to someone's face or something. But if as an artist you don't have something bigger to give it to, I think you're going to be miserable. I think the work is going to be soulless, and you're not going to make something that lasts or that means something. Not really lasts. Okay, artists
Mhm.
that have made soulless things, there we still have modern art museums totally full of their stuff, and that's like a really, I know, a touchy thing to say, but
No, we
um,
talk about it all the time on the podcast. I love bashing modern art. Let's do it.
and and there may have been some of them that had pure motive, but most of that stuff, Duchamp's toilet, for instance, doesn't lift anybody, doesn't help anybody. Just because it's in the art books and it's hanging on the wall doesn't mean it lasts.
Mhm.
Like give it
Mhm.
give it another 100, 200 years when Christ comes and we'll see if it lasts. You know what I mean? Like by lasting, I mean truly touching and truly blessing the world. Not just being different or remarkable or shocking. You know what I mean? So if you want your work to be that kind of lasting, to have that kind of life, that kind of
Mm.
soul, it's got to be for something bigger than yourself. You've got to push past you.
Here's the irony, though. This is something that I've talked to Joe Paquette at length about on the podcast. He's been on 3 or 4 times now. The last one of the last episodes with him was like a little over 3 hours long. And this, I mean, he's got this wonderful take on authenticity. So it comes back down to that balance of getting outside of yourself, you know, thinking about some sort of bigger purpose, bigger mission, but at the same time, not being caught up in external factors and yet being totally authentic. So somebody listening to this might go, well, hang on a second. There's might be a little bit of a contradiction here. So I mean, I for one, like I feel like I need to be truly authentic and first figure out what is it that I love, not what's in my client's head, not what I think is going to get likes on Instagram, not what I think I can sell because the last 3 or 4 of those suckers just sold, but what is it that I really want to explore here? And so that, in a way, in a certain sense, is kind of selfish or self-obsessed. But we have to, but the way I kind of click out of it, and I'd love to hear your thoughts on this. The way I click out of that is because I feel like that inspiration, when you're listening to that small, quiet voice of inspiration within you, you're given that. It's like a seed that's been planted in you. And I actually don't take any ownership over what I'm authentically drawn to. So it's not my idea anyway. It's like, look at the way the light is striking that cloud. Oh, that'd make a good painting. Well, that wasn't me. I'm not part of that equation, but it's something that sparks within me. So it's like striking that flint, and that spark lands in my heart, sets it ablaze, and I'm like, okay, I'm on fire for this idea now. Let's go. you know? So I don't know. How do you feel about that?
No, I'm glad you brought that up because you're right. There's always like a dual, there's always opposing true principles that you have to find like this happy point in between. So
Mm,
you're talking about like I'm talking about painting selflessly, but there's also this true idea of being yourself, like painting the way Josh paints and not the way Andrew paints. You're not trying to be like the third or the fourth Richard Schmidt or John Singer Sargent or second best someone else, but just to do what's natural and true to you. But I don't think they have to oppose each other. I think they can complement each other. It's like you said, like finding what truly matters to you and being thoughtful and being introspective about like I think that's so beautiful. Well, what about it is so beautiful? Why am I so drawn to that? And what do I want to communicate in a selfless way? How do I want to help other people experience this thing that I'm feeling? The light
mm,
on that cloud, like you talked about. Um, but I also loved that idea. Harvey Dunn is one of my favorite art philosophers. I love him like crazy, Harvey Dunn. And he
mm.
talks about ideas being something that are not ours, that they come to us for expression. Um,
Oh, I love
and
that.
that like when it comes, you don't have to be afraid because you know you can, like it shows you. The idea shows you. So it knows that you
Cool.
can do it. So you have to just like get out of the way and let it express itself. It's the most tasty thought. I love it.
That is cool. That is
But
cool.
anyway, I think they're both true principles is that we want to be like part of my responsibility as an artist is to give the world um, like my unique the things that are me, right? That the world's never seen, like the way Josh sees, the way Josh thinks, um, like something new, and not just for the sake of being new, but something new because like we're talking about, it's pure and it's authentic and it's deliberate um, and it's me, I guess. So,
Mm, mm,
but doing that not for the sake of glory or power or money or like fame or all those things, but um, doing it with love, doing it because you care about other people and because
mhm,
this thing called art brings so much joy to the way it opens your eyes to paint 2000 paintings from life. The way I remember the first time I saw like purple in a shadow on snow, like yellow sunlight. And I was like, Leon Parson was my teacher at BYU Idaho. We're in a bus like headed to Jackson Hole to see the galleries. He's on a walkie-talkie in the other van, and he's like, "Guys, look out the window." And he's been trying to tell us, he's been trying to open our minds to color, right? 20 nothing year olds. And we're looking at cubes in colored light, and he's going, look, when it's yellow light, the shadows are the complement. They turn purple, and he's trying to teach us, and we're going, it looks gray to me. It just looks dark, and but I remember being in the van and Leon's on the intercom and he's like, look at the shadows on the sagebrush. You guys see the shadows on the sagebrush? And I remember like isolating it, like taking my little
yeah,
fingers and go, oh my word, it's purple. It's purple. Those shadows are purple. I can't believe it. And then the way that changes just life. You can't drive to work anymore down the freeway in Utah and not see the mountains.
yeah.
And the way it brings like um, richness and depth to your life because you see color, right? So as an artist, we get this experience,
Mm,
and if we'll paint um, to share that with others, right? I think that's what happened with Shishkin. I don't
mm,
I don't know his motives or whatever. I think truly though that he had this intense delight and beauty. That there was like that scene, that snow, the way it filtered through those trees, he was just totally geeking out about it himself. And so it got stuck in the paint. His delight, his joy. Um, and then you felt it a little bit 100 years later, you know what I mean? So
yeah, yeah.
anyway, I think these are beautiful principles that all work together, if that makes sense, that there's
Oh,
not like,
totally,
yeah.
totally. this is the thing I love about the podcast is that I didn't quite think we would end up here, but I love it. This has been on the more philosophical side of, some of the episodes that I've done, but that is definitely welcome here. I think we could easily do a part two if we could organize that for some time, because it's a crime to have Josh Clare on the podcast and not ask him about the technical aspects. Now that we've talked about some of the philosophical aspects, but I think that would best be for a part two. But listen, man, this has been an absolute delight. Before we round things out here, what's next for you? What are some things that you got coming up that you're looking forward to? Have you got any epic projects on that massive easel of yours? What's happening?
Yeah, no, for sure. I mean, okay, let me confess this first, Andrew.
Sure.
When I talk about the doctrine of art, nothing excites me more than like these true, beautiful principles about art with capital A is what I call it.
Mm-hmm.
But what I have to confess, what everyone listening needs to know is that I'm not like, I know how I should act. I don't act that way all the time. You know what I mean? Like I'm trying,
Mm-hmm.
but man, I'm weak and I'm human and I'm selfish so much of the time. So what's next is just like a lifetime of me trying to do what I know. You know what I mean? And that's what art is for me. Like every single day to come out here and try to be a little bit more in tune, try to like put the distractions away, try to look a little bit more carefully and find more joy and more delight in this gorgeous, gorgeous creation that God's given to us. Try to be a little bit more selfless as I paint. Try to think a little bit less about selling it and being awesome, and a little bit more about how it could change someone's life, how it could lift someone.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, it's just a journey. It's a beautiful journey. It's a hard journey. It's a battle every day against the selfish part of me and trying to have more faith that Christ can change me into a selfless person like he is. As far as like exactly what's happening, I'm really, really excited about the next couple of years because I said no to all the things finally. It's a beautiful, beautiful year for me where I said it's hard. It's hard to say no, but right, like, will you do this holiday miniature show? Will you do this show with me? Will you do this show at this museum? Will you do this show? No. Yeah, no, no, sorry, no, no, no. So I said no to all the things, which is like first in my career, first in my existence that I have a year of no's. Um, and what I'm most excited about um, is trying to shut off the constant stream of static and noise that is the plague of being alive in 2024.
Mm-hmm.
And especially, I would say, like the Instagram noise too, like all the cool things that people are doing, all the great art that my contemporaries are doing. Like, I want to just shut it off and go back to me and nature and kind of Soroya-esque. Like I feel like they need to be at least 4 foot by 4 foot. I need to figure out like a way to set my easel up outside all the time. And I
Mm-hmm.
need to just go ham on this on these paintings of this beauty that I'm surrounded with. And then I'll have I don't know where it'll be. I don't know what the exhibit will look like, but eventually I'll have a show. You know, like Soroy did, right? He'd paint for 2 years and then have like 120 pieces in this enormous show. He just rent a space and like show all his work, you know?
That's
I
cool.
think that's what's next for me is I'm just gonna paint my guts out like a child, um, and have joy in doing it and then show them somewhere. That's kind of the idea. I do have like commissions that I'll have to do this next year, but they're good commissions that I've chosen. I'm excited about them. So for the next year and a half, 2 years, I'll be working up to a show like that.
Wonderful. Well, we will watch this space with great interest. Josh Clare, thank you so much for being on the Creative Endeavor podcast.
Yeah, thanks, Andrew. It was delightful.
Well, I really hope you've enjoyed this episode of the Creative Endeavor podcast. A huge shout out and thank you to Josh Clare for joining me. Right now, make sure you're following Josh on Instagram and on his website. I've included those links in the description that accompanies this podcast. What fun this was. It's nice to kind of delve into different territory, get a little deeper and more philosophical on the creative endeavor. So if you enjoyed this, if this made some sort of impact on you, if this was the inspiration that was fueling your creativity in the studio as you're painting or sculpting or doing all that wonderful stuff you do, then please do me a huge favor and leave me a rating or a review on whatever audio platform you're listening on. Remember, you can always find the exclusive video version on Tisch Academy. That's TISCH.academy. But I want to thank you so much for tuning in and joining me here in the studio. I've really enjoyed your company, and I'll be with you again in another episode of The Creative Endeavor.